morning, everybody. I got Troy Smith here, fitness and nutrition for all, 6-year Green Beret and 4-year Army Ranger. Troy, how you doing today?
I'm good. We got the sound checked out. I think we're ready to roll.
I think we are, man. I think we are. And I'll be honest with you, it's well worth the 3 to 5 minutes to just get everything as best as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that note, can you tell everybody what you're doing on TikTok and Instagram right now? What you're doing with your fitness program?
Yeah, so I started with this fitness and nutrition for all program. I saw a little bit of a need especially in the US kind of social realm and culture, that we've got a real issue with a lack of exercise and a lack of nutrition. And I've been off social media for many, many years before I started this. And what I've come to realize being in social media now is it seems like everything is very, very complicated. And in my opinion, it should be far more basic than what a lot of these social media personalities and influencers are putting out. So I created this channel in an effort to provide that basic information as well as some entertaining workouts that anybody can do with minimal equipment.
Yeah.
Though, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It is a little complicated, or at least they play it out to be a little bit complicated. So, what has been your solution to that problem?
Just breaking down the basics is my plan. I'm just kind of digging in. I'm still new to the kind of conversational piece on social media, but keeping it as basic as possible. I believe that kind of a key to physical well-being and ultimately also mental well-being is like building a table. You only really need 3 legs. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's pretty simple. It should be simple to build a table. And what many seem to be trying to do is turning it into rocket science and really digging into a lot of the nuances. If you're interested in that stuff, the nuances are really interesting. I mean, the science and research that has gone into diet and exercise is really interesting stuff if you're into that, but you don't need it.
Now, how many of
And
the
that's kind of
average?
where I
Yeah,
come in.
how many of the average guy next door? How many of average Americans need to know every nuance on day one of every little detail that goes down to like micro this and micro that, and they
Right.
don't need that. You just need to get up off the couch, off their phone, and walking down the street for 10 minutes.
A
And
hundred percent.
yeah, and that 3 legs is way more convenient than getting some wild table that turns into a couch that turns into a chair.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're not there for a value, they don't have a purpose, but I think some of the guys do this and make it a little more complicated than necessary so that you rely on them and pay the $40 a month to get their program and get all the information out. Because they'll start off with a free PDF, they get your email, and now they got your email and they tell you you're not doing enough. And here's all the
That's
complicated
exactly
stuff you
right.
don't understand, and I'm the only one on earth that can teach you. And I'll be honest with you, you could knock that whole wall down yourself by just
I
telling the
hope. And
basics because it's not that hard. I lost 100 pounds a couple years ago
okay.
in my 40s just by saying I don't want to be sitting on the couch. I mean, COVID hits and they tell you stay in your house and eat junk food and have someone deliver to you all day. I was like,
Yeah.
are you kidding
Yep.
me? How is that possibly going to make anything better? I was like, that
Yeah.
literally is the
Absolutely.
worst case scenario to add to the worst case scenario. And I'm like, nah, there's got to be a different way to do this. And Troy, you caught me immediately. I got stuck after 3 minutes on your Instagram when you started going on that high protein diet. That's one of the key
Okay.
factors to what changed my entire life. I don't think people realize protein is the key to everything, and fat is way more valuable. And I would say you could almost turn that pyramid upside down.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I just came across a truly remarkable medical study that was done by Harvard Medical School. And I'm not going to get too in detailed with that here because I plan on doing a whole segment about it. But it is just like you said, it's going to turn everything upside down potentially. That and more studies that are going to be coming out. There's also a physician that was just on the Joe Rogan Experience a few days ago that talked about this exact same subject, and we've had it wrong for decades. We've been bamboozled
Oh, straight
potentially.
bamboozles. Because there's a reason why
So,
red meat is the most valuable food on the planet. I tell
right.
my
And
daughters, because a lot of my daughters like to eat a lot of pasta and bread, and I'm like, that's poor man's meat. You're literally,
yeah.
carbohydrates are literally poor man's protein. And
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I'm still early in the carnivore diet. I'm just shy of 2 weeks now, and I've had ups and downs for sure. But my highest ups are when I have eaten the most red meat. And if I haven't eaten enough red meat, or I've the only red meat I've eaten might be ground beef that day, then those have been when I felt the worst so far on this diet. So the more cuts I eat, the better I tend to feel.
oh,
So
without a doubt, without a doubt. And pork doesn't seem to be bad. And I do about 5 eggs a day in the morning, which I think about it. If you go back in history, you had almost everybody's a farmer, right?
yep,
So if you had like a cornfield or you had cows or whatever you did for your farm, whatever your farm was, almost all of them had their own chickens, right?
sure,
There was no guy around. So what did you have for breakfast every morning? You had eggs every morning. That high protein diet, by far, I feel like I've gotten younger. I don't want to blow anybody's mind and send anybody down a rabbit hole that's not true for them. But for me, I run 5 miles a day, 4 days a week. I never ran in my life, ever in my life. So I'm doing 20 miles a week. And that's only because I'm trying to be sustainable. I seem to get cramps in my legs after a while because I never really did it before. And my knees give out. My left knee gives out a little bit. So if I don't make it sustainable, because I know I can do 10 miles a day, but can I do that forever? I don't know.
sure,
Yeah.
yep,
As a man, you got to get that blood flowing. You have to.
absolutely, yep. If I haven't worked out, and I personally I work out every day, no exceptions. If I haven't worked out, I know I'm going to feel worse that evening than if I had worked out. And that's not to say that I go as hard as I possibly can every day. That certainly isn't the case. I have a lot of light days built into my workouts, but I do work out every single day. And for me, that is crucial for my mental health as well.
Yes, that's another thing because the mind and the body they go in tangent perfectly. If you and they actually did studies on trying to figure out how to get someone's mind to work better, how to get the
Mm,
mind to work longer, to not have what is it called the mental issues with the elderly people there with like Alzheimer's and stuff. They said you can't get rid of it by just playing those mind games. You can't play chess now. Not that chess doesn't make your mind work a little more strategic or everything, but you will not stave off the loss of the mental capacity by just doing that. It's getting off the couch and walking, running, high cardio, and physical, just weightlifting literally staves it off because the mind and the body are so closely connected. It's more than they realized.
absolutely. You have to keep moving. Right now, my wife and I are at a stage in our lives where we're having some loved ones that are reaching, the end of their lives. And in every case, for our loved ones, if something happens to where they can no longer move for one reason or another, whether it's illness or an accident that gets them injured, I mean, their health, mental health, physical health, just absolutely tanks very soon after they become immobile. And that's the other thing that I'm very much an advocate for and plan to advocate for more with my social media presence is continued movement with an emphasis on longevity.
Yeah.
So
So you're looking at 40-year-olds really, the guys that have been working in factories for the last 20 years or drive trucks for the last 20 years and then come home and just sit down. Whatever it is, they need to get up and move. And
yeah, yep.
there's a big population. I think that's the biggest population, is it not? The
As far
30 to
as
50, I think that's a huge segment of the population.
yeah, possibly. Yep. I haven't looked at all that data,
I don't
but
know. Yeah, I'm guessing right now. This is just based on my observation. It doesn't seem that the majority of the population is under 35.
yeah, Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Yeah. On that note, though, young men can't be playing video games and sitting around the basement all day either, because that'll come back to haunt you later on. And
Absolutely.
there's just there's an element of engagement when you have to walk. If I need to talk to one of my kids, I'll spend some time just going for a walk. Because once you start clearing your head, you start asking those more in detailed questions. We homeschooled for a little while, and there was a moment in time where, if you make cookies with the kids, it's not mixing the batter, it's not putting the eggs in. It's that quiet moment after you've done all the physical labor and you put it in the oven and everything goes quiet for a minute that they ask you those profound questions. I find that exactly gets replicated in a 5-minute walk. For some reason,
Yeah.
you clear your head for a second, you start smelling the air and you start looking around, and there's a certain element of noise with the birds and everything else that just changes your mindset and takes you away from the phone and the grind and everything else. And all of a sudden, you could ask a more intimate question and get a more intimate conversation in just 5 minutes.
Yeah. I have had very similar experiences. In fact, a lot of my audio based videos that I've been doing recently, most of those plot lines, or however you want to describe it, come to me during my morning workout. Um, and if more than one comes, oftentimes I'll have to take a pause in the workout and record an audio to make sure that I don't lose it,
Or at
because they
least,
are
or at
fleeting
least, or
too.
yeah, yeah, or at least write down like the gist of the idea real quick, so you don't kill
Yeah.
the yeah. Because if
Yep.
you're in the middle of it and you got that burn, it feels great, and you're on top of everything right now, and you're like, man, if I stop this now, I'm not going to come back, and if I do come back, I got to start from the beginning. So yeah, I constantly I write down things every day, and I keep a
Yeah.
journal every day now. It's funny how when you decide to go on an adventure, it changes your life, kind of in essence, and you
Oh, for
become a
sure.
totally different person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's I mean, it was about a year ago I set down on this path that has also led to my social media presence as well as some other avenues. And yeah, it was, an event happened in my life and in my family's life that just massively changed my direction. And I gained a lot of ambition back, a lot of clarity, a lot of focus that I was definitely lacking before then. So I have experienced what many in America are currently experiencing, where you get complacent, you want to come home and relax, and that isn't always the answer. So not if you want to achieve your goals, that's for sure.
Oh, without a doubt, man. It seems to become more real every day for me because I've heard this a while back and someone else's thought in general. But conflict avoided is conflict amplified. If you're going to sit on that couch for a couple months, man, getting back on any type of grind or getting any self worth back is a daunting task. You might as well stay on the grind and be tired. That's why it's got to be sustainable. I find that if I keep it sustainable, my ability to not lax gets greater. So I'm moving one bar down a little bit, but I'm moving another bar up, and I'm finding an equilibrium where I can sustain my momentum and my desire to keep on going. Because
Yeah.
there's sometimes when that snowball starts rolling downhill, there's no stopping it. Do you know what I mean? And would you want to? When it gets big enough, do you really want to? So I want to see how far I can go with what I do. I want to see how good I can get, how efficient I can get. So I think I like having you guys on. Someone like you, Troy, is one of my favorite people to talk to see how you guys get where you're going. So on that note, what triggers you to find this passion? Because it's obvious that being in the army and being a ranger and being all that stuff, that exercise has been an important part of your life, especially early on. So why not make a career out of something you already are good at doing?
Sure, absolutely. And you're absolutely correct. Physical fitness is a huge part of being in special operations in general. I think that's definitely something that anyone from any special operations branch would agree with, whether that's Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Air Force PJs, etc. You have to be physically fit. And In my opinion, that requires a full spectrum of the fitness area. You've got to be able to run 10 miles at a relatively good pace, but you've also got to be able to lift a lot of weight. If your buddy goes down who weighs 200 pounds and then he's got another 50 pounds of kit, well, I've got to be strong enough to get 250 pounds onto my shoulder or be able to drag 250 pounds, whatever the case may be. And that requires a lot of strength. So, in my opinion, you've got to be very wide on the spectrum. And there are some guys, in my experience in special operations, that are big and just strong, and maybe their running isn't quite as good. They can still do it, don't get me wrong. And then, of course, you've got other guys on the spectrum that are, 160, 170 pounds, can run forever and do so very efficiently. That has definitely helped me in creating my workouts at a minimum. It's also given me the determination, I think, to make content and make content consistently now. And ultimately, though, right now, fitness and diet are my main emphasis. I may do a channel change or even create additional channels to discuss being a Green Beret, being a Ranger, being a veteran, and all of the struggles that now come with that, as well as achieving academic prowess. Here shortly, in just a few weeks, I start school to become a physician assistant, and that has had its own challenges as well. I want to talk about all those things. I feel like I might have more to offer than just fitness and diet. Yet, I think a core fundamental problem with American culture right now is a lack of movement. And if we can get people moving, if I can get just a few, honestly, like that's all I can ask for right now. And but that movement, getting people moving, is also going to help with the mental health crisis in America, which is why I started with the fitness channel, to get things moving, to get things off the ground.
Yes,
so,
and the bravery it takes to get started, because people don't realize that first video is way harder to produce than they think.
Oh man!
And boy, the bravery it takes to hit the send button, and then you gotta let it go. You just gotta let it go, and yeah, there's more to it than they realize, and I think the adventure is worth it, because not only are you learning something new, but who knows where this leads to. Like you said, you may have a whole other channel about being an Army Ranger or a Green Beret, and that could be the one that's the real catalyst that feeds your family the rest of your life. But you had to stumble through this, because people don't realize, and I noticed that this is an easy one for people to overlook. You have to be a fool before you're a master.
Oh, absolutely.
And you have to be humble enough to admit you're a fool when you start, and just I cringe at some of your videos. And
oh, they're so bad.
Oh, I took down my original pilot had more to do about my journey and losing weight than anything else, and I couldn't keep it up anymore because it made absolutely no sense with the rest of my channel. So I made a new pilot, and that wasn't very good either. I look at it now and it's terrible, but I you got to keep it up. You got to be man enough to say that was good enough for then, and I have to live with what I have now and just keep moving forward, because I find that micro improvements every day, they cascade into bigger things. They add up over time. There's an accumulation, and before you know it, there's a lot more to you than was even the original design for the moment that you went into that project. And there's no limit to. I think that's another thing with people sitting on a couch and not doing anything is we all have so much more potential than we realize. And I don't think you have a right to squander that potential. This is all in, all sum game. You get one chance at this. And if you're playing video games and you had an opportunity to be a fitness coach or to be a physician or to be a Green Beret and you didn't bother, the world becomes a smaller place. And people don't see, they don't look at the greater picture of the long term. And we affect each other more than we know. And you can affect one person, and that person could change the world. You have no idea how valuable we're like a network, and everybody's all connected more than we think. And with social media, it becomes even more profound. And Troy, I think you have a skill set that's valuable in and of itself, and your mindset's right because you've already accomplished. Because people don't realize either when you accomplish things, there's a sense of value to that accomplishment that carries over to the next one and gives you a little bit more determination. How many people just need that little nudge to accomplish something?
Right.
How many? Not many.
And will that start a cascade?
And it could change the world. And instead of us
Yeah.
looking at a world where everybody's just going to be too lazy and everything's going to fall apart, and my generation is just going to say, we're done towing the line, you guys got to take it, and no one's ready. And maybe it's all going to change. Maybe it'll all turn around.
Yep. Yeah. Very possible. And to a point on your first discussion about having to admit that you're a fool before you can become a master. Man, I really took for granted how much there was to learn about social media content from every aspect.
And people are critical, man. People are critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for me, it's trying to weigh. There are times where I look at a product and I know that I could do X in order to make that product better, but that's going to cost me this much time. And do I have that much time to go through that editing process and make that touch up? Or do I have to just send it as is for now and make that improvement later? So
that flipping a coin is so difficult. But you got to also take into other considerations. You're aiming at a target and it's far away. The odds are you're not going to hit it the first shot, especially your trajectory and your angle and everything else and the distance. You're reading out 600 meters or 400 meters, and it's really not. And the target's really a little bit lower in elevation than you thought. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, I got to get a little closer. So you get a little closer. Now you're hundreds and hundreds of videos in. Does that video even matter? Now, it motivated you to get a little bit better the next time. But if you would have spent 2 days on that video, would you have gotten 20 feet closer to the target and more accurate? So you got you got to take that all of that into consideration when you're making your final decision, and that's one of the reasons why it's so tough. The last episode, the echo was terrible. I couldn't get them to fix it. And I'm like, do I spend 2 more days? Because I know I got another guy. Troy's coming on in 2 days. Do I play with this video and try to learn everything new for the next 2 days and not publish this and then have 2 that I'm struggling with before Friday? Because I promised myself I would do 2 a week, and I don't like not keeping promises, man.
Yeah.
Especially to myself.
I hear you there.
Especially to myself.
Right.
So, Troy's like, I'm going to do this stuff. I'm really good at fitness. It's going to be easy for me to show everybody. You hit the button and everybody's going to love you, and then you realize it's a lot more than just hitting the button and everybody loves you.
Oh, man.
So how does that play out for you? How does that play out when you get a troll in there that's going to tell you, and they think that there's an absolute. This is going to work. Protein's going to work for everybody, or carbohydrates this, or 20% that, or whatever. And everybody's different. Everybody's so different.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, I think, the idea of trolls, internet trolls, is definitely new to me. Like I said, I wasn't on social media for probably close to a decade until about 6 months ago, before I started all of this little adventure. So the learning curve has been exceptionally steep for me. And I've had a few of these so-called trolls kind of jump in and make comments that are, completely contradictory to the point that I've been trying to make in a video. And I was actually just bouncing a thought off of my sounding board, which is my wife. There was a comment that a guy made, or I don't actually know what their gender was or whatever, but they made a comment, yeah, I can tell you're not an expert, which is something that I explicitly stated in this specific video. And my response, I wasn't very proud of it. It wasn't overly mean, if you will, but I said, thanks for your productive comment, or something along those lines, with the old thumbs up emoji. And I told my wife, I was like, I kind of regret sending that. And it gave me this sort of epiphany, if you will, that from now on, I'm just going to do my best to just shower people with kindness. Like, you want to make a negative comment on my post? Send it. I'm going to give you the kindest response I possibly can. Because I think, how do you react to that? You want to get a rise out of people. People want to get a rise out of you in these cases. And if I just shower them with praise and kindness, I mean, what is their rebuttal going to be? You
Yeah.
know, on the flip side of that, there was an individual who commented, and it actually, I went and self reflected. I felt that I needed to make every effort to defend my position. And so I went and dug into research. And what I found was surprise. I was actually wrong in this case. And it was something that I had been taught from someone who I believed was a trusted intelligent source, and never confirmed that information on my own. And then I spit it out in this video, and this guy caught me, and good on it. Like, so in that case, there can be good from, people calling you out in a video. And I learned from that. And now it makes me challenge every piece of information I put out. In the future, before I put out some sort of kind of information that requires data, I'm going to dig in and do research and make sure that it's not a biased thought that I have, that I gained from a trusted instructor, but never validated of my own accord. So it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah, yeah. You got to self-reflect. I agree, and you gotta realize, especially in social media, this is super important. Your critics are your best friends. They're your greatest allies. Number one, it's more engagement, because if there's a bunch of people arguing over a nuance of a conversation, you could skyrocket the algorithm on just that argument alone. Two,
Sure.
if you do self-reflect and you do find out that there's a little bit of research to be done and that you need to fine-tune that belief, they did you a humongous favor.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because none of us are perfect, and there's no way you could pump out the appropriate amount of content to get the traction needed and be flawless. If you think Joe Rogan or anybody else has ever had a flawless year, you're kidding yourself. None of us are flawless. It's just not. It's not in the cards. We're not supposed to be. So just to be as genuinely honest as you can. So it's like instead of saying I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna try my best not to tell a lie. I'm gonna try my best to what I think is true to say it honestly and be open-minded to learn something new. Because one of the hardest things to do is to unlearn a lie. It's very easy to
Absolutely.
memorize a lie, very easy to believe in a lie, but to actually take that lie and deconstruct it and say, "Oops, even though this is a fabric of my reality now, I have to step back and realize that wasn't 100% true. I love that person. I love most of his opinions, but that moment in time, he was wrong, and I really have to reevaluate." And that's a hard thing for people to do. People just dig in,
Absolutely.
and they'll live with that lie, knowing it's a lie, just because it's hard. It's hard to let go.
Yeah. And that specific incident that I mentioned, as I was going through and trying to validate, and I couldn't find the research to validate my position, it was super frustrating, and I had to go through this moment of like, I was wrong. And admitting that was very challenging for sure.
Nah, that's a great place to be. When you are willing to humble yourself, you don't have to be humbled.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh
sure.
yeah, that's a great, yeah. Not only that, but it opens up your mind to be able to grow twice as fast. I feel like that's like the kindling. Being humble is a kindling for your mind to grow, your body to grow, everything to be able to expand faster. Because if you're on a journey, the goal is to get there, man. If I'm going to the grocery store, have I ever not gone to the grocery? I go every time. I don't care if there's an accident in front of me. I don't care if there's construction. It's not a matter of will I get there. It's just a matter of how I'm going to get there. And if you treat
Sure.
everything else in your life in that same manner, and not act like, oh, I just give up. I'm going to give up. It changes everything. And so just the constant mindset that I'm going to learn, I'm going to change, I'm going to learn, I'm going to change, over on top of each other like a sandwich, man, and just grow while I'm going, puts me in a position where I feel like there's no limitation yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm finding this out later on in life, man. I wish I would have been in this mindset. I was too busy partying and having fun in my 20s because life was way too easy, man. I don't know how kids do it nowadays, but Everything was so much easier without social media. It really was.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
It was so much easier. You go to the bar and you literally had to talk to someone face to face, and you had no choice. It was either go home alone or earn it. Those were the only two
Yep.
options, man. There was no lingering. Hopefully, if my Instagram's cute enough that she could go and do some research and I could catch her later with everything. No, you got to do it right here, right now. You got to earn that phone
Yep.
number. I'd like to go back. You were saying 200-pound man being able to run so far and 175-pound man being able to run unlimited, but he can't really pick up. How does that play into having females in the military? I got a lady next to me on my left. I get injured and she's got to drag me 2 football fields. Can't she do it, or do I just die? Are we just saying, check, we're willing to lose 20% of the population in a major war because females are to the left of me and I just don't have anybody to drag me out of the hellhole that I'm in right now? Is that the new is that the new reality?
That's a very valid question. When I was separating from the military, all of that was happening. So when as of the day that I left, there was still not a single woman in Army Special Operations. So I never worked with a woman in the Rangers or in the Green Berets. Of course, those conversations, all that stuff was starting to happen. That political climate was changing around the time that I separated from the military, but none of it had quite come to fruition. I think undoubtedly there are women who can physically accomplish the mission. I mean, you look at these CrossFit athletes; many of those women could, if not all of those women that are competing at that level, could undoubtedly accomplish the mission that is required of a Ranger or a Green Beret. How does that translate to the average woman? I don't know. I haven't seen it. I like to think that they maintained the standards that were set for Green Berets and Rangers before females were allowed to volunteer for the units. Whether or not that happened, I can't confirm. I think as long as they didn't adjust the standards and the women that are volunteering are able to accomplish the same standards as the men, power to them, bring it on. But whether or not that is happening, I can't confirm. So.
Okay. I had to ask. Well, then I'll jump back in where my thought was going with that. Was if, for me personally, I'm all for women being able to do anything a man could do as long as they follow the same requirements, because I definitely don't want someone not being able to run enough miles or not be able to climb the wall, whatever it be. But I think it's going to be a morale issue later on, especially, okay, so worst case scenario, we're really dug in, we're in foxholes, and we're really fighting to the death kind of thing. The goal is to keep people in the damn foxhole, right? If the person next to me can't carry me or defend me as well and all that, the odds of me, I don't want to say being cowardice, but defecting and running away, knowing that I'm not going to be able to get out of this because she's not going to be able to help me, has to go up at least a little bit. And there's a level of, if you're next to me and I've known you for the last 2 years and you're a dude, I can't cower down because I could never look you in the face again. So I have to die with you in that hole if you're willing to die with me in that hole. And I don't have a choice. Do you know what I'm saying? And now we're dying. Yeah, we're fighting to the death. Whereas if there's a female next to me, I don't know. That could be sexist on my part. I'm not sure if that is. But if she can't drag me out and these dudes are going to tear me to pieces if they get their hands on me after they wound me, I don't know if I stay in the foxhole as long. I don't know. I don't know. You really don't know who you are until you're actually in that moment. But I damn well know that if Troy's next to me, you ain't willing to leave, I ain't willing to leave. I know that for a fact. So I think there's a morale issue on that front. And it's not me being a coward. It's not me being critical. I'm just being realistic. There's a fucking difference. There's a big difference. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's not even getting into transgender stuff or anything. Just letting the females in as is, and especially if I know you drop the standard a little bit to let them come in. You don't have to be able to drag 200 pounds, 200 feet. We just need you to drag 100 pounds, 40 feet. And up, you pass. You got a black belt. That's not a black belt. That's not a real black belt.
Yeah,
You're not a real
I
Green
think,
Beret, and you're not a real Green Beret.
I think it's paramount that they keep the same standards. Whether or not, like I said, whether or not they're doing that, I'm not sure. A few of my buddies that I talk to on the regular have not mentioned really it as an issue among their complaints.
Yeah, but it's not an issue until it's an issue.
Yeah, and
It's
I
gonna.
think yeah, that's definitely a concern. If you're
I got
worried
another
that,
question, man. How many Chinese people are throwing women into the front lines?
yeah, that's
How many Russians? How many Russians are throwing their pretty girls out in the front lines?
that's something that I'm gonna guess zero, but I'm not sure.
So
There
as
was
soon as they find out there's women in there, do you know how much more morale they have to go get them?
well, there was
When you
a piece I saw.
when you plunder a country, you go for the centralized government, the gold, and the women. And we're putting one of those three at the front lines. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, yeah. There's a piece I saw where it compared a recent army advertisement to a Russian army advertisement, and it was very interesting comparing if you put the two side by side.
It's almost
If
humiliating. It's almost
if you use that
humiliating.
as a if you use that as a reference for what the military's priorities are, it seems to me that one looks a little bit more dedicated to maintaining their freedom than the other one does. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's the key, man. Uh, you can only rely on pushing a button and having a nuclear weapon go in outer space to a certain extent. There's that
you need,
only you can't use it every day. You know what I
right.
mean? If you had a kid and you just whooped his ass every day, you ain't gonna get a whole lot out of that kid.
Yeah,
There's gotta be more. That's frustrating. It's really a daunting realization. I don't see I don't know how it's gonna play out for my kids, to be honest with you. If you look at the way everything's automating itself and the abundance of stuff where everybody's just so worried about materialistic things, and the military just seems like I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. I really don't know. I mean, we've seen it happen before in history. You can go back and watch the Romans. You can watch the English. I mean, the English kind of died a slow death, or didn't even really die. They just shrunk. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to
Yeah,
play out.
yeah. I mean, I think as far as the ending a golden era, I think that will be economic more so than it would be open conflict these days.
Yes, it seems like you
Um,
could kill someone from within than without. It's easier to do that. Again, with the nuclear weapons, we're going to be a force to reckon with if there's one strong dude left.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
those missiles go into outer space. They come back down. They hit cigarette packs with precision, and you really can't stop them.
right.
You have a better chance of stopping a meteorite, right? So if we really want to leverage something, we have to leverage. I understand that concept, but you can't always use the big stick. Sometimes you got to use a little stick or a little bribery or food or some other means. Take the phone away a little bit. I don't know. There's got to be another method than just. But yeah, the economic thing. Everybody keeps worrying about our economy collapsing, and everybody worries about the dollar disappearing. I don't know if that's a big deal. I think it's more. I think it'll be more of a soul thing than it'll be an economic thing. Because economics, there's so many nuances to it. Do you really think rich people are just going to let their money be worthless?
Right. Yeah,
I don't
that's a
see that.
fair
I don't
point.
see that
Yeah.
happen. And then there's another issue too with the dollar. Okay, people don't realize. I think they said, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's pretty close. There's $2 trillion worth of underground economics. So the drug cartels and the moving of people around, everything. I think it's $2 trillion a year in cash, U.S. dollars, cash. Do you think that's going to go away overnight? That's not going
Right.
away overnight
Yeah.
either. So you got smuggling and human trafficking and sex trade and drug trade and all those things equating to $2 trillion in cash money. And if you think those cats are going to let that just go away overnight without it, that's not going to happen either. So economic wise, I don't see us going anywhere either because say the petrodollar disappeared. Well, we could just mass produce oil. I don't think people realize how much we were producing a couple years ago, how much we stopped, and that was only because we limited the poking of holes. If we said we're going to unlimitedly poke as many holes as we please and pump out as much as we want, we haven't touched anything we got. I think we quadrupled our reservoir, quadrupled our knowledge of what is underground here and what we control, and it was astronomical before it quadrupled. And we've been importing everybody else's oil, hoping to suck them dry before we even touch really the major parts of our oil. So we could still make the dollar dominant on the oil front today, tomorrow.
Okay. And yes, it's been a while since I looked, but were we not at one time the largest producer of oil
On the planet? When
in the world?
Donald Trump was there at his peak, we were pulling out and pushing out more than anybody else. We were
Okay, that's what I
exporting
thought.
far more than we were using, and we're still the number one user of all that stuff too, on top of that. So I don't see us really going anywhere economically. I don't see us going anywhere militarily. I mean, yeah, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole too, I would say with the way everything's automating, I don't know. There may be a day where there's a robot dog dragging you out of the battlefield, and it won't matter if it's a female or not at all. You know?
Yeah.
And that requirement won't even be necessary. Because I don't know if you've seen Boston Dynamics, those dogs, I'm pretty sure they're going to be pulling people out pretty quick. And
I haven't seen the dogs.
Oh, okay. You got to Google it. Got to Google it.
I have seen
Boston
some of the
Dynamics,
robot
the
videos.
robots. Well, they perfected the dog before they even played with the robot. And they're
Okay.
supposed to be like mules, basically like a mule with a camera, or a mule with a gun, or a mule with a sling, and they drag someone out. And they're going to do all kinds of menial tasks, and they're completely autonomous. And these things will be able to move in any terrain like a horse and carry 200-300 pounds, no questions asked. And they do it without, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. So definitely Google that dog stuff because it's pretty cool. And they're using them now. I think they said they were using them with cameras with infrared and with some of the infrastructure in Boston right now. So they'll just walk around and keep an eye on all the electronics that are going on with some of the heavier parts of the electronical communications and all that stuff. And they can actually sense when something goes wrong and send it off to the computers. And it's wild what they can do with that stuff. Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see the future on that. But yeah, I think we'll die from within because we're too lazy to do what it takes to be our full potential. I think that's the real thing that'll eat us away from the inside.
Well, if we were all just trying our best to be our best, I think the world would look a lot different. That's
It
for
would
sure.
look amazing. Now I got a question for you. What if we all stopped trying to make it worse? How much better can we just make it on that? How many people are saboteurs? How many people are just too lazy and too angry and too bitter and too violently inclined to see how much they can drag everybody else down? Because there's so many people out there that you see you climbing the ladder, they'll try to drag you back down in that hole so quick. Don't you dare leave this misery. I'm stuck here. My mindset's stuck here. I need you to keep your mindset stuck here too. And there's how many good can we do? How much can we accelerate if everybody just stops sabotaging everything?
Well, and I have to wonder if are they intentionally trying to make things worse? Because I suspect that the actions, and I mean, we're kind of being vague here, but I suspect those people that are generally making the world worse are probably doing it because it benefits them. Maybe it benefits someone, right? So
well, misery likes company.
Yeah, very true.
And there's another factor too. You have to lie to yourself before you lie to other people. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to believe the lie before you can really tell it well. So you tell a lie, you know it's a lie. Things don't work out the way you want them to because they never do. I don't care what happens. You try to bend the reality of existence, it will snap back in your face eventually. No one gets away with anything. And so you lie, it don't work out. Everybody told you it was going to work out on social media or whatever. You could say this or be this or do this, and it's not true. And that doesn't pan out the way you thought it was going to pan out, and now you're bitter and resentful.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know how resentful people can get? We've seen it in the 20th century, Russia and Mao and what was it there? The killing fields in was it Cambodia? These people were brutal, man. The Russians were brutal. These were resentful people on the ground because everybody thinks that Hitler was able to control everything from the top down. No, everybody had to be weak at the bottom for it to work. You think my grandfather would have put up with most of the shit we put up with now? Because the ground level would have said, hell no, we ain't putting up with this. And it would have just died its death. And Hitler would have never been Hitler. They have to weaken the bottom foundation and have everybody weak enough and resentful enough and bitter enough and lying to themselves enough where they will be weak enough to let someone like that in. And that's how you bring a little hell to earth. You could bring a little slice of hell right here. We watched the Chinese, we watched the Russians, we watched a lot of people do it. And it wasn't that long ago. There was planes, trains, and automobiles 100 years ago. So it was a modern world with a modern human. And I don't know how many times I've said this on my podcast, but Russia and Ukraine, man, they literally had signs that said it's not okay to eat your children. They were starving to death. That is a wild place to be. That's a historical fact. When shit hit the fan in Russia, they took over Ukraine. Ukraine was the breadbasket of the world. Ukraine gets communism, so they bring all the intellectuals out. And the intellectuals go and tell all the poor people, you see all those farmers over there? Do you know why they got more acreage than you? Do you know why they have a better house than you? Do you know why they live better than you? Because they cheated, lie, and steal from you. Let's go burn down everything they got. So they took the resentment of the poor people that were lazy, arrogant, and lying, used it as a weapon, and went and killed all the productive people. Do you know what happened next year? Everybody fucking starved. So the Russian military goes out to Ukraine, and they take every jarred canned food. They take everything. If you had a carrot in your backyard and it was half grown, they took it out of the ground. They took everything. Your jarred food, your canned food, your dry food. They took everything and brought it back to the cities so that they can maintain the population in the cities and the control in the cities. They didn't care about the outskirts. And those people literally starved to death. I think it was 20 to 40 million people died of starvation.
Wow.
Eating kids, eating each other. That is a historical fact. And
that's insane.
we could bring that hell to us if we wanted to. That hell can be here if we don't tell the truth and try our best to do whatever we can to make everybody around us a little bit, because it's like a rippling effect. Because there's no difference between Troy being a good person and Troy making everything around them a better place. They go in tangent together. So the more you bring out your full potential, the more other people around you do. Just like if someone lies, like I realize because I've been on a journey not to lie for the last 2 years, or at least tell the truth as I know it. You know what I mean? You can't always know exactly what the truth is in the moment. But what you think it is in the moment, you try to be as truthful as possible. And I realized all of a sudden, if I let someone around me lie, that also weakens me. So if that guy's too lazy to do his job right at the grocery store and he doesn't run that coupon correctly and it doesn't work, he gets exhausted and tired and annoyed and he just takes $1 off instead of the $3 off, and I let it go, it eats away at me a little bit. You get sensitive enough where I want to hold other people accountable. Do your job correctly. And all of a sudden, that cascades into so many aspects of life to other people. And you cast a shadow. You do cast a little bit of a shadow on someone. And there will be resentful people out there. But now you know who isn't up to par and who is. And that's also a valuable skill set. To be able to realize that there's so much out there and there's so many people that need us. You go to the grocery store and pay attention for a minute. How many little kids and old people need you? If shit hit the fan, how many of those people could they really take care of themselves? The grocery stores just stopped working. The trucks stopped bringing in the food. How many of those elderly need you? There's so many. If you look at it, it's the majority of the population. So I'll be honest with you, we don't want to fight. We don't want a war. We don't want to see things collapse. We don't want to see the economics collapse. I think the best strategy is everybody has to be the best person they possibly can be. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. And we got to get back to those fundamentals we used to have, man. One day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing will build resiliency better than just trying to be the best version of yourself you can. That's for sure.
Yeah, and conflict avoided is conflict amplified. You're literally going to deal with it anyways. And instead of it being a baby dragon, it becomes a big dragon. So you
Yeah.
might as well deal with it
Yep.
right away, and make the world a better place. And I think that, like I said, a better Troy is a better world, and your whole community does get better. And if you can help one person, you don't know how much of an effect that'll have. One kid gets off of that computer, one kid gets off of Call of Duty. It could change 1,000 lives, 1,000,000 lives, 1,000,000,000 lives. You just don't know.
Sure. Yep.
So on that note, what have you seen? I know that was pretty deep there, but what have you seen to be the biggest thing to get traction in social media?
Uh, Lately it has been captions.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, very simple, yet something that I didn't understand until about a week ago. And in just the last week, since adding captions to my speaking videos, my I've gained more followers in 1 week than I've probably gained in months before captions. So super simple.
Yeah, but now that's a skill set that's set now. Now you can check that off
Yeah,
and do the next thing.
exactly right. Exactly right. And it's so simple. I definitely it was a just a gross misunderstanding on my side. I thought that I understood how one platform did it, and I kind of assumed that the other two did it similarly, and I couldn't have been further from the truth on that.
Yeah, and I love it because I came to that conclusion recently too. Especially TikTok, you got to do the words while you're speaking,
Yeah,
because you don't know if they have their audio on. They might be at work.
exactly
They
right.
might they might be at
Yeah,
the DMV. I don't know, maybe the grocery store. I don't know where they are, but half the time they don't have their audio on. But they're still
yeah,
scrolling. They're still scrolling. And if your words pop up, you could be the difference between the three guys that didn't have the words pop up and you did, and they pay attention for 3 more seconds, and then the computer catches you and they say, "Oh, he got three. The other guy's got two. He wins."
absolutely. I mean, my average views on videos has gone up significantly
That's right.
since adding captions. And I think the very first video that I added captions is also my highest viewed video on TikTok, interestingly enough. So it was just more icing on the cake that I should have been doing that the whole time.
Good deal. Yeah, and each platform is a little bit different. So if you're aiming for 35 and under, you will say TikTok. If you're looking for females, you go Instagram. And I'm not; these are just general sayings. And if you're looking for the older crowd, 35 to 55, Facebook. You know what I mean? Each one has, and at certain times of day, make all of it makes a difference. All that little stuff makes a difference. Catch your big stuff on a Friday. I try to go live after a couple videos on YouTube or TikTok, just to let those videos get recycled through again.
Hmm.
All of it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot my what I was about to say
Well, you
there.
you
That's
when I originally asked you what you thought got the most traction, the last couple days
yeah,
or last week, you really focused
yep,
on putting those words on while you're talking.
yeah, yeah, yep. And with me wanting to branch out into realms outside of fitness, being a veteran, being a special operations soldier, being a physician associate, um, and getting into hopefully a little bit of medicine, medical conversations at that point. Like I need those tools to be able to get that point across and capture the biggest audience that I can.
Oh, you'll be
And
unstoppable, man. You'll be unstoppable with a medical degree like that. Oh yeah.
yeah, that's the plan. And I hope it gains traction. And I mean, I'm dipping my toes in with the fitness and diet for sure. I don't know if that's what it's going to be as far as what makes a positive impact, but that's my only concern is making the biggest positive impact that I possibly can. And I'm dipping my toes in a lot of different areas right now to figure out where that's going to be. Is it going to be when I start talking about the struggles that I've had transitioning from active military to being a veteran, or will it be on the medical side of things in my personal practice as a physician associate? I don't know, but that's why I'm kind of dipping in everywhere and trying to see what picks up traction to make that the difference that I want to make.
Yeah,
So
it's a fun adventure too to figure it out.
yeah, yep.
So, how did you land on medical? What caused you to have a passion and want to go back to school for something so big like that? That's a daunting task. That's no joke. Pre med and all
Yeah,
that stuff, health and
it
human
is
sciences, all that.
right. It's actually an old goal that has kind of come full circle. So I had the desire to become a physician assistant about 15 years ago. Um, yeah, I
That's
was
awesome,
early
man. I love
on.
it. I want to hear how that played out.
Yeah, so I was early on in my military career. I was going through Ranger selection, which is just brutal. One of the most mentally taxing things that I've ever been through. And during that period, we had 1 hour of medical instruction, and it was the only hour that the instructors were like, "All right, everybody, chill. You've been getting messed up for, the last 2.5 weeks or whatever it had been up till that point. But this is chill. We want you to learn this stuff." And in that hour, we went over tourniquet application. We went over nasopharyngeal airways, packing wounds, basic wound dressing stuff. And that hour, I fell in love.
I would say that's what captured you. Isn't it funny how
Yeah,
your passions find you? You don't find your passions. You chase
yeah.
them,
I
but they find
that
you.
is that is certainly true for me. So at that point, I didn't know where I wanted to go necessarily. I started talking to some of my platoon medics. I joined as an infantryman, and you can't just switch your job whenever you want. The Army doesn't quite work that way. If you want to switch your job, you've got to wait until the end of your enlistment, and you've got to re-enlist to change jobs.
And you got to go back
Or
down. Do you have to go back down?
no, you don't go back down.
Okay.
But I would have to go. I would have to go to the medic school instead of. So I went to infantry school, infantry AIT. If I did that, if I reclassed, I would have had to go to the regular Army's medic AIT, or advanced individual training. Uh, I decided that I didn't want to wait 3 more years and that I wanted to get in right now. And so that was what drove me towards Special Forces. Special Forces, there's four main jobs. You've got communications, engineer, medic, and weapons. And the Special Forces medic course is probably the most intensive and best, I would say, medical training that you can get outside of a traditional medical school per se, uh, in the world potentially.
So yeah,
It is. It is.
special forces. Is that like triage, and you're basically like the surgeon on Johnny on the spot. You got to be able to
It's
do
it's
everything.
it's extensive. Yeah, you are trained to be able to provide care in almost every aspect, as if there is not a physician around.
Yeah, yeah. There is no physician. Yeah, yeah. If you're especially if you do,
Yeah.
yeah. There's no second chance. It's this.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep. It
Wow.
starts out with some basic anatomy courses, and by the end, you're doing anesthesia and the surgical management of extremity war wounds.
And no
Right.
doctor will ever
So,
get that kind of knowledge because you can't do all those things. But you can on the field, though.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
that's wild.
Um, so I decided to leave the Rangers after about 4 years and pursue Special Forces medic. So I went to their selection. You have to, whenever you want to switch special operations, you've got to go through their selection process so they know that you're, right for them, etc. I went through that selection and got a little lucky and was selected to be a medic, and went through that 2.5 years of training, became a medic, and then operated as a medic for 4 years before separating from the military and going back to school full time with a pre medical emphasis, et cetera, though my goal had changed, I actually wanted to be a physician now. And as time progressed in my undergraduate education, I decided physician wasn't right for me, and the goal kind of fell off. It fell out of my mind. I had forgotten about wanting to be a physician associate as well. And I went and got a position as a firefighter, an EMT, on a full-time department nearby, and did that for a few years and got complacent. And, about a year ago, I was fortunately unfortunate. A circumstance arose that caused me to go see my physician, my primary care provider, and we got into a conversation. She had just taken over for my previous primary care provider who had retired. And so she's going through, getting to know me, asking my educational background, this and that. And I told her about my pre-medical focus in undergraduate. And she goes, "Why didn't you go to medical school?" And I was like, I didn't, I decided it wasn't right for me. "Well, you should seriously think about being a physician associate." And we had a 20-30 minute conversation in her office, uh, about that, and how she wishes if she could go back, she would have been a physician associate instead of a physician all along. And that got the wheels turning. And here we are. I start in just a few weeks. So,
Congratulations, and I'm glad you were able to find that before it was too late. Because sometimes
yeah,
you get stuck in, and I understand the day to day takes over sometimes, and the immediate needs supersede a passion or a desire, but sometimes it eats away at you if you don't do what you were supposed to do.
fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I was self-aware enough to know that, because the fire department is an excellent career. I worked with great guys and great women, and had an awesome experience with the fire department. But I knew if I looked back 10, 15 years that I never would have forgiven myself for not trying this. And I feel very lucky that I was self-aware in that. And that same self-awareness actually goes into what drove me into the military. When I joined, I knew that it wasn't a choice. Of course, you volunteer to go in. For me, it wasn't a choice. I had to join because I had to know if I could do it, if I was going to be capable. And once again, I was self-aware enough to know that if I had looked back and never tried, I would have never forgiven myself.
Yeah.
So,
And it makes life so much easier when you're honest with yourself, and you have to make those split second decisions. They're so much easier to make.
yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
without a doubt. So, yeah, you got to constantly self-examine yourself. You got to constantly reevaluate where you're going, what you're doing, and try to make the best. Because we're still blind. Even if you are a master after so many years, there's still always something to be learned. And
Absolutely.
if you can't decide this is the moment, this is the moment, this is not the moment, this is the opportunity, because how many people have a door open up right in front of them and they just don't see it?
Mm-hmm.
They're just not self-tuned in enough to realize this is my opportunity, because sometimes you only get 2 or 3 chances at what you're supposed to do. You're not going to get an unlimited chance,
Yeah.
And how
Yep.
many years do you got? The first 20 years you're useless, pretty much. You're a good you're a good you're a good monkey, but you are not ready to take over the world. You're not ready to put on the burden on your shoulders that you think you can until after 20, I think, personally. And then from 60 on, it's kind of hard to toe the line. So
Yeah.
how much time is that?
Right.
Your entire life is in that bracket in between those two.
Right.
I like I said, I would guess maybe you get 3 doors if you're lucky, and that's if you live in America. If you live in Cambodia or live in Colombia, maybe you get 1. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a window.
Right.
Maybe you got to walk all the way through Mexico to get to America. I don't know, but we're very fortunate to live here, where, relatively speaking, whatever your passions are, you're allowed to you chase them. You
Absolutely.
might
Yeah.
have to fill out some
Yep.
paperwork, but you should be allowed to chase almost anything. and you could become successful doing almost anything. I would have
Yep.
never
Yep.
dreamed people would be able to make. I had a guy on 3 months ago who was he wasn't a chiropractor, he was a massage therapist. 2 million followers on TikTok, 1.5 million on Instagram, makes more money talking and explaining what his job and passion were than actually doing his job and
Yeah.
passion. So I would have never thought that was even humanly possible 20 years ago, and we have no idea how the next 10 years will play out. It's obviously
Right.
changing extremely fast, and
Yep.
every loss has like 3 opportunities, especially if you're looking. So I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I would love to hear how you got into the adventure of going in the military, man. How did that play out for you?
Yeah. I actually did one semester of college, enrolled for my second semester right out of high school, and dropped out my second semester to join the military. Uh, at the time, I thought my passion was to build homes. I built a house with a couple of my friends and one of their fathers over a summer in high school, and that's what we did for 4 months. We built, a house from foundation to roof, and that was the only thing at the time that I knew anything about, and it was fine. I enjoyed it. Granted, I was with my friends, two of my best friends. So I went to a junior college to pursue construction management as a degree. A semester in, I was mature enough to know that I was not mature enough for college. And that was where that thought of joining the military started coming in. And it didn't take long for me to have an insatiable desire to itch that scratch. And next thing you know, I'm talking to a recruiter and off we go.
Right.
So,
And
yep.
before you know it, you're talking on the podcast and looking at going to medical school. So that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing, man.
Things
Amazing.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You just gotta be you gotta be willing. You gotta willing to take a chance.
Yep.
I think that's one of the best indicators of who a person is, how much risk they're willing to absorb. It says so much about somebody. So it takes me about 100 conversations to get someone like Troy on my podcast. And I realize now that the vast majority of people, even though they want to be famous, even though they want to be known, they want recognition or anything like that, they don't have that chase. They don't have that, you called it an itch. I guess you could call it itch. I don't know what you call it. But that willingness to be open, the willingness to take a risk, that willingness to throw yourself out there. Because how do you know you like construction until you get that hammer in your hand? How do you
Yeah.
know you like to patch people up until you are knee deep in a mess? You just don't know. You just don't know. And you have to be brave enough to take a risk and take a chance. Because it's easy to capitulate and just say, I'm going to stay home.
Right.
That's a far
It
easier
is. It is.
strategy.
It's security, and that's where I fell in when I was at the fire department. I stayed there for probably a year or two longer than I should have. It was secure. I was safe there. I was making a good income. I was supporting my family. But fortunately, I feel fortunate that I've put myself and my wife and I have put ourselves in a financial position that we can take risks like this, where I can leave the fire department to pursue this dream. Not everybody has that opportunity, and finance is yet one more thing that I'd love to talk about someday, and hopefully help people out with that too.
It's
So,
huge. Yeah, that's another one. How many people don't get off the couch because they're afraid to take a risk because they have to pay the bills and they got to feed their kids?
yep, exactly
I would
right.
say the vast majority of them. And it's human nature to make a few mistakes when you're younger. And it's really easy to all of a sudden have this magic family pop up out of nowhere. And before you know it, you're doing a 9 to 5 job because I don't care how much you love something, you got to keep that responsibility. Most of society will look down at you if you don't take care of what is immediately in front of you.
Yep.
Yeah, and as they should. But again, before you know it, you're drinking a beer, you're playing on your phone, and 2 years turn into 4 years, and regret's a hell of a thing. I'll be honest
Oh
with
yeah.
you. You're picking your poison. Nothing's perfect. Nothing's an absolute. You could either take the risk and lose it all, or you don't fool yourself and not taking a risk isn't a risk. All right. On that note, I had three questions for you. We really didn't get into them. Did you explain to me how you got this all started? How this all exactly started? How you got on Instagram and TikTok?
Loosely.
Okay.
I saw a problem with culture that was had to do with, people not moving, not exercising, and I thought that maybe I could solve that problem, that maybe I could motivate some people, that maybe I could give them some basic tools for fitness and exercise to get them moving towards the right path to physical well-being, which indirectly would lead to improved mental well-being as well. So that's what drove me to start the social media adventure, if you will. And of course, it's evolving now. Now I want to talk about more things. There's been a number of categories that we've talked about that I feel I have been had above average success at, that I think I could speak to and possibly help even more people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I remember talking about that. That was a great starting point. So
yeah,
on that note, you have some schooling you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing that full time.
yeah, that is no holds barred fire hose of information for 2 years. So the didactic portion is 14 months, and that's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with class being mandatory. So no getting out of that one. It is a wealth of information in a very short period of
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So how does that play out with the current situation where you're trying to grow your media? So you're trying to grow social media. You're gonna have to go to school full time. You're gonna have to take your wife out to dinner at least occasionally,
Yeah.
or at
Yep.
least sit on the couch with her occasionally. You're gonna have to do something with her occasionally.
Yeah.
How are you gonna try to manage all three?
I am. So yeah, I believe that when it comes to what is most important to you, you can't have more than one thing. And it's okay if from time to time those change. My family is always number one in my mind. But if we compare what you think is most important versus how you spend your time, which in my opinion shows what is truly more important in your life, um, we're going to have a little bit of ebb and flow. So for while I'm in school, school is going to be my priority, the most important thing in my life for those 2 years, because I want to be the most competent provider that I possibly can be. Where family will maybe take a number two for a short duration.
Yeah, but in the
Uh,
long run, though, you're actually making it better for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And as soon as school's over, as soon as time allows, family is going to be number one again.
yeah.
It's a short-term thing. Like I said, it's going to ebb and flow. The social media presence will probably back off a little bit. I've been trying to post multiple times a week, every day that I can. And I might back that off to, once, twice, or three times per week as time sort of allows. And the topics will probably get shorter and a little bit easier to edit down.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
but eventually I'll pick
The
that
more
back up.
efficient you get, the easier it becomes.
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
do one on Monday, and you're so efficient because you've been doing this for 6 months. It takes 20 minutes, and you're good for 3 days, and do another one in 3 days.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that same thing will happen with the schooling too. Is the first couple weeks, maybe even the first couple months, you're like, man, my brain is killing me. I need to relax. I need everybody to just relax for a minute. And then all of a sudden, it'll almost become mundane because you've been doing it for so long that you'll be able to fit family in a little bit more than you would the first couple months. And by the time you're near the end, school will be almost like mowing a lawn, and you'll be ready to jump
Right.
into the real world. Yeah.
And I feel fortunate that I had the opportunity to go through the Special Forces medic course. That was 12 months long, and arguably just as, or maybe just slightly less intensive than what this is going to be. Most other people don't have that opportunity. As far as I know, there's not another Special Forces medic in my class, which I feel like does give me a leg up.
Oh,
I have
huge,
been
huge, yeah.
through I have been through that rigorous of a study regimen and been successful. I have had extensive medical training that none of them have had. Many of them have not had. Um, so that does give me some confidence going in. It does give me the hope that I will not have to maybe study quite as much and therefore get to spend some more time with my family as well. So
Well, I love to see how past experiences and talents they carry themselves over into other endeavors. So you never lose anything, especially when you're proficient or good at something. If you're a good Green Beret, all those characteristics, all those personality traits, all those disciplines, they carry over the rest of their lives. Yeah,
yeah,
oh
yep,
yeah, without doubt. And I think it's going to be a cakewalk, man. I think school is psychologically going to hit you harder than the reality of it. I'm telling you, after a couple months, it's going to be. I mean, there'll be times where it'll be a topic you just don't get, and you're going to be
right,
like, man, I'm going to really need to dig in deep on this one. But I think outside of that, you're going to have a blast, man. Especially if it's your passion, you're going to love it more than
yeah,
you think. And it's one of those things where it's not forever.
absolutely.
Yeah, 2 years is quick too. 2 years goes by so fast. So, are you going to be able to
Yep.
use the GI Bill? Is that going to be a free endeavor for you?
Oh, by no means will it be free. The GI Bill does help. I used a significant portion of the GI Bill for my undergraduate education. So that got me my bachelor's degree. I still have a little bit left. It's a time-based benefit, so you're limited to 36 months. And once you exhaust that, you're, right where everybody else is. And I will exhaust that in less than a year of the PA program, and then the rest is all on me. So,
Wow. Okay.
but it has been a massive, massive help for sure.
Oh, well, no, as it should be. If we're going to cater to anybody, I think you guys deserve it the most. You go in my stead, and I'm grateful for that. Not all of us were designed to do it, and it's amazing. It's amazing that we can literally live in a society where the guys that toe the line volunteer. I don't know if we've ever done that in human history, have we?
As far as like enrolling in the military and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Have we ever done that where it wasn't a conscription where, okay, the Persians are coming, everybody get to pick up your spear, we got to go.
Oh,
Have we ever in human history, have we ever just had a citizen army?
a volunteer service.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
that
that's a
literally,
good question. I don't know.
yeah, that literally
Yeah.
basically runs the world, theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, on that note, we do. As far as I can tell, we do it. And we
Right.
do
Oh
it, and we
yeah.
do it well because not too many civilizations conquered the world and gave it back to the idiots that couldn't handle it to begin with, and we did that twice. Again, well, okay, you can't use that as an analogy because those two times, World War One and World War Two, those were voluntold. Those were not volunteers. Those guys were,
Yeah.
were called to duty. So I guess we're kind of a hybrid, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say hybrid. Yeah. With the draft always being,
Oh, it's
on the back
viable.
burner.
Didn't they actually just start asking girls to sign up for the draft? Is that a thing?
Oh boy. I don't know.
I think I heard that. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's
I mean,
true
I
or not.
suppose if they're allowed to voluntarily join, then I mean, what's to say why you couldn't draft them, right? But I don't know.
We're gonna find out how equal we really are, aren't we?
Yeah.
I don't know. That we already went down that rabbit hole.
Right.
Troy, I appreciate you more than you know, man. I thank you for your service. I worked in the VA for 11 and a half years, and those guys are the most amazing guys on the planet. I had a lot of fun. It
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a wild journey all by itself. On that note, let everybody know where they can find you. So if they want to figure out what kind of diet they want, because how deep do you go in the diets? Or do you just really psychoanalyze the one you're dealing with right now, or do you really dive into all of the diets that are out there?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate for experimentation with your diet. I don't think any one diet is the best diet for all people. I think that's kind of a silly idea to keep in mind. So I experiment all the time. Over the last year or two, though it wasn't on social media, I have done countless different versions of fasting, of intermittent fasting, as well as prolonged fasting to out to 3 days, even. And now it's I just kind of on a whim decided to do the carnivore, and I've been learning a lot along the way. I'm very glad that I've set out on that path. Uh, but once again, I'm all about basics. So if there is one diet that is maybe better for most people, it is a basic macro load of what I call the 1/3 rule, with 1/3 of your calories coming from carbs, 1/3 from fat, and 1/3 from protein. And of course, always unprocessed or less processed if absolutely possible. I know that is a budgetary constraint for for many people. Um, so basics, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
the carnivore diet isn't basic.
no,
It
no,
is
no,
very
no.
challenging, but
And it is, and it gets kind of blamed. But when I first started doing the eggs and the high protein stuff, everything was cheap, man. Eggs were 75 cents a carton.
oh yeah,
So
yep,
at the time, I lost like 60 pounds in like a couple months. 'Cause
okay,
I did construction for 10 years, so I've always been a little bit more athletic than the average person. I was always a pretty strong person, and so I was able to catch back up pretty quick, even though I was older. And everybody at work was like, "How'd you lose so much weight so fast?" And then I tell them what I do, and they're like, "That's crazy." And then we get past that, and a bunch of people start coming into work with these drinks and these shakes and all these
oh yeah,
gimmicks. And this girl's like, "I
yeah,
spent $200 this month, and it's going to cost me $60 a week." I was like, "It's literally costing me less to lose weight," and I'm not. I've come to the conclusion. This is one of my conclusions. If you rely on money to fix a problem, the odds are you can't fix the problem.
yeah,
Do you understand what I'm saying? And that wasn't something I stumbled on that one by accident because the eggs were cheap and the sausage was cheap and the steak was cheap at the time and chicken was cheap. So it wasn't hard to do because it was freaking cheaper than what I was doing already. I was eating processed food. I was eating garbage and pizza and Chinese food and all this stuff. And it was all processed garbage in the frozen food section because I got a bunch of kids. It's way cheaper. It's way easier to eat a Hot Pocket from the microwave. It's just so much easier. And
yeah, yep,
but taking the time to learn how to cook something, taking the time it's amazing how fast I lost the weight, how fast my wallet got bigger too. Like I said, 75 cents, almost 3 days for a carton of eggs. So it was like 20 cents a
yeah.
day in eggs, man. It was like 20. And all of a sudden it went to $5. Like, you son of a bitches, you're ruining my life.
Yeah, it's well, that's the carnivore diet. True is actually pretty expensive if you're going to have an ideal diet that is also tasty. You're looking at a lot of money right now.
But it's clean. It's real clean, man. Red meat
It
is
is
clean.
clean. It is
Yeah.
so clean. Yeah, and
You can
it's
feel it. You
once
can feel it in your body when you toxicate. I heard you say it too. You said, "Man, I'm starving for carbs and my brain's going crazy or whatever." But once you get through that point, wow, man. And you said you fasted, so you already have the self discipline to get past those kind of overtake those circumstances.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting what happens with fasting. Once you've fasted for long enough, the desire to eat actually goes away. It subsides almost completely, and any desire you have to eat at that point is up here, and
And
it's
you
not
start and you
physical.
start realizing it too.
Yeah, and it's not physical at that point. It's definitely mental.
Yeah.
The carnivore diet definitely it's similar in some ways, but definitely different as well. I can eat a lot of food on carnivore. I can sit down and eat a lot of food, but I don't have an appetite. In fact, um, I have not eaten anything yet today. I worked out this morning.
Same
I
thing with
haven't
me.
eaten
Same thing with me. I
today,
haven't eaten yet. Yeah, yeah, I haven't
and
eaten yet.
I feel fine. I mean, as soon as we get done, I'm gonna go house, a pound and a half of steak and 6 eggs, right? But
Yes.
I don't have. I'm not restricted by my desire to eat, which is kind of awesome.
Never ate liver before. I was looking at one of your meals the other day. It was 6 eggs. It was some pork, some red meat, and a piece of liver or a whole liver. I wasn't sure. Never ate liver. What's the benefit with the liver? Why are you focused on
Uh,
adding that?
So if you're not eating organ meat on the carnivore diet, you can end up with some micronutrient deficiencies. Beef liver is, and any type of liver is great, honestly. The ruminant animals tend to be better. Beef liver is, as far as I understand, the best source of these micronutrients. It's got a nickname that is nature's multivitamin.
Yeah.
And it's got just about everything you need. And all you need is, half an ounce to 2 ounces, depending on your body weight. So
Wild.
it's
Isn't that
it's
wild?
not my favorite so far. I'm getting used to it, but it is not
It
my
looks
favorite.
terrible. When we used to eat medicine, my family used to eat medicine. They would put everything in that damn stew, and I used to I would just cringe at like 6, 7 years old because I had to eat it.
Yeah.
I was like, man,
Yep.
that piece right there has way too much cartilage, or that piece right there, that is not meat.
Yeah,
I
and
know
that's
that's a
another
liver.
interesting
I know
thing.
that's a kidney. That's something else. That's not. That's sure as hell not. That is not pork loin.
And that's one more thing that I've had to get used to. I've been a guy that I would cut a significant portion of the fat off my steak because I didn't like the consistency.
Yeah, but the fat's
You
good for
can't
your
do that on
brain.
this
People don't
diet.
realize that you cannot make your
Yeah.
brain work properly without fat.
Yeah, you can, and with this diet, you have to eat fat. Uh, it can come from butter, but it is definitely better if it comes from a meat source. And red meat seems to be the best, at least for me. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, man, I'm
yep.
so much better. Like I said, I almost feel like I don't feel 45 anymore. The last couple of years I've changed. I feel so much younger. But yeah, I could touch on so many others. We'll never end. This will never end, Troy. This will never end because I can talk forever.
Well, we
Um,
could always have another one some other time.
And
So,
I welcome it to anybody that's willing to come on. That I will do it again. And I keep saying it. This is episode 79, so I have 79 promises I need to keep. So maybe at 100, I'll go back to the first one. I don't know.
yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do it yet. But I do. I want to be able to come back and say, how did this play out? Did you fail? Did you give up? Did you succeed? Are you still grinding? I want to know. I want to know
Yeah.
where that person's at. And you never know, man. Journeys are wild. And you aim at a
Oh,
target.
there's
You may aim at a target, and all of a sudden you realize there's a bigger, better target just beyond that target. I'm doing a hard do-over. I want that. But you would have never saw it if you didn't go for the first target.
absolutely.
And I told that to
So,
my daughter, man. I told that to my daughter in a scenario where I was like, I know this is a crap job, but you don't know how this job will play out. She wanted to do a food truck. She's almost 20. She wanted to do a food truck, which I thought was kind of dumb, but that's your passion. You go chase your passion. She ends up working at a fast food restaurant, which the general manager has a restaurant. And the restaurant is owned by his father-in-law, who has a food truck, and she's at a food truck right now because she laid it up and did the job she didn't want to do. Now she's at the food truck she wanted, and it's
yeah,
free. We were going to pay $100,000 for a food truck. She didn't need to spend a damn penny. She just had to lady up and go and work at that job she didn't want to work for 3 months. It just took 3 months to actually see her dream come true, and she'll be actually at that food truck tonight.
that's awesome.
What's the odds of
Yeah,
that happening by accident?
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It makes you wonder if there's more out there than reality would let you see.
Well, and I can attest to, something very similar, the way that my path has worked out. There's been twists and turns all along the way, and goals change, and that's okay. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? As long as the progress continues. So,
awesome. All right, again, go ahead and tell everybody how they could get in touch with you and find you on social media.
you can find me on social media at YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram at fitness and nutrition for the number all.
And there's underscores.
So
All of them have underscores or not. So if
there
I was to like
are.
Google you, or if I was to go on Instagram and just search you up, do I have to put the underscores in?
Right, and it varies. I think it varies a little by platform.
Okay.
So for Instagram, it is fitness underscore. There's underscores for everything except for nutrition for all. There's no underscores in that
And no
section
spaces or nothing. Yeah.
and no spaces. Yep, I believe TikTok is actually the same. Fitness, there's no underscores and no spaces.
It's all
So
one.
it's
It's all one word. Okay.
all one word. Yep. And YouTube is, you should be able to find me. It has spaces, no underscores. So one,
They definitely need to find a way to make that
yeah,
consistent across all the platforms. I don't know how,
yeah,
but they need to because it's so inconvenient, right? Some of them won't let you have spaces, some of them will let you have spaces. So some have
right.
underscores, some don't have underscores. Some of it can't have any capital letters. I'm like, you guys are driving me nuts. You're
Yeah,
driving
I think if you find me on TikTok, all the other two
all the other
links are in
links.
the
They're
TikTok.
linked. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. So look for them on
Yeah.
TikTok, like a couple of his videos, follow them, and then go see them on Instagram and YouTube. Troy,
All
I
right.
appreciate your
Thank you.
time. I hope you have a great week, man, and good luck. The world will be a better place.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man.